11 years old, Herman Lehmann walked out to check on his family's sheep and accidentally stepped into one of the most psychologically unhinged survival stories in American history. The kind where childhood ends before sunset and nobody bothers to ask for permission. By nightfall, the hills of Texas were still quiet, the stars still innocent, and Herman's entire understanding of the world had already expired. This is not a story about adventure. It is a true story in American history. Now here's the uncomfortable part. This didn't happen in some mythical wasteland or cinematic apocalypse. It happened in a place people were actively calling home, farming, raising families, and pretending tomorrow was guaranteed. The American frontier loved that illusion. It let people believe life was stable right up until the moment it proved them violently wrong. Herman's story sits right at that fault line, between comfort and chaos, between bedtime routines and war cries, between sheep grazing and survival instincts. You do not learn from books. What makes this story unsettling isn't just the violence, it's how quickly the mind adapts when the alternative is death. One moment Herman is a farm boy, worried about chores. The next he is calculating how not to starve, how not to get beaten, how not to disappear entirely. And yes, before you ask, the frontier was deeply unfair, wildly indifferent, and had absolutely no interest in whether you were ready for any of it. This is a story about survival without a hero's soundtrack, about growing up in a place where childhood was a temporary condition, and about how the human brain, annoyingly enough, is capable of adapting to almost anything if given no other option. Picture Central Texas in the year 1870, not the Texas of highways and air-conditioned gas stations, but a quieter, wider place, a land that hasn't learned yet how loud it will eventually become, the kind of quiet that feels almost polite during the day and deeply suspicious at night. Rolling hills softened by oak trees and limestone outcrops, tall grass bending lazily in the warm air, and a sky so large it makes a person feel like an afterthought. This is the Texas Hill Country, beautiful in a way that does not care if you notice, peaceful in the same way a sleeping animal is peaceful, calm only until it decides it isn't. Somewhere out there on a small farm near Mason County, an 11-year-old boy named Herman Lehmann steps outside as the afternoon slides toward evening, doing something entirely unremarkable, checking on sheep, chasing birds from cornfields, the sort of task that fills childhood days before history decides to interrupt. He has no idea that by sunset, his life will split cleanly in two, before and after, and that the after will be so strange, so brutal, and so difficult to explain that even decades later people will listen to his story with the polite disbelief usually reserved for exaggerations, myths, or Netflix pitches that feel just a little too ambitious. Herman is not special in the way stories usually like to pretend children are special. He isn't marked by prophecy or destiny or a dramatic monologue waiting inside him. He is the third of 8 children born into a frontier family doing what frontier families did best, which is working constantly and hoping nothing goes terribly wrong. His father died when Herman was still young, which already places him slightly ahead of the curve in learning how unfair the world can be, and his mother remarried a man named Philip Biedermeier because on the frontier, practicality mattered more than romance, and survival mattered more than grief. They are not rich, they are not poor. They have land, animals, hands that know how to work, and eyes that know how to scan the horizon, which is a crucial skill when the horizon sometimes sends trouble toward you at full speed. This part of Texas sits right at the edge of Comanche territory, which is a polite way of saying it is a place where rules are flexible, maps are suggestions, and peace exists only when everyone involved agrees to pretend it does. The Comanche are already legends by this point, feared, admired, misunderstood, and endlessly simplified by people who have never watched them ride. They are not originally from Texas. History rarely respects modern borders. They migrated south from the Rocky Mountains generations earlier, pushed by stronger tribes and pulled by opportunity, hunger, and horses. Horses change everything. The Spanish knew that, which is why they tried so hard to keep them under control. But history has never been good at following instructions. And once horses reached the plains, the Comanche didn't just learn to ride, they redefined what riding meant. They became something closer to motion itself, fast, precise, devastating, a living answer to the question of what happens when human skill and animal power merge without hesitation. By 1870, Comanche raids have been a fact of life for decades, sometimes for horses, sometimes for supplies, sometimes for captives, especially children, not out of random cruelty, but out of grim arithmetic. Disease brought by Europeans had hollowed out entire communities, and captives were a way to replace the lost, to rebuild families in the only way still available. This does not make the experience gentle or fair, or less terrifying for the people involved. It simply explains why it happened at all. History is full of explanations that do nothing to soften the outcome. Herman knows none of this in any meaningful way. He knows only that he is supposed to watch the sheep, scare off crows, and be back before dark, and that his brother Willie is nearby, close enough that home still feels reachable, visible even. Chimney smoke rising like a promise that ordinary life is waiting. Then the sound arrives before the sight. Hoofbeats, fast, heavy, wrong, followed by war cries that slice through the quiet like a blade. And suddenly the hills are no longer empty. They are alive with motion, riders cresting a ridge at full speed. A dozen of them, maybe more, and Herman reacts the way children sometimes do in moments they do not yet understand. He tries to fight. He is 11 years old, armed with nothing useful, facing grown men on horseback. And he still tries, which tells you something important about him, though it will take years for that fact to matter. A warrior named Carnivist strikes him over the head with a pistol, not out of drama, not out of rage, but out of efficiency. And when Herman's vision clears, he is already tied to a horse, already moving, already watching his home shrink into something that looks smaller than it ever did before. His brother Willie falls from a horse during the chaos, somehow survives, somehow finds his way back home, and when asked where Herman is, all he can say is that Herman has gone on, which is both heartbreakingly vague and painfully accurate. For Herman, the world becomes movement, dust, heat, pain, confusion, fear, so constant, it stops feeling sharp and starts feeling heavy. The raiding party travels fast, mostly at night, avoiding pursuit, crossing vast stretches of land that seem to go on forever, the kind of emptiness that makes distance feel personal. He is sunburned, dehydrated, starving, terrified, and occasionally reminded in brutal ways that resistance is no longer a meaningful option. There is an incident with a slaughtered calf that is not worth describing in detail here, only noting that it serves a purpose to strip away dignity, familiarity, and choice. To reduce a child to something that can be reshaped. This is the part of the story where people expect defiance, escape attempts, clever tricks, but what actually happens is quieter and more unsettling. Something inside Herman shifts. At some point during those early weeks, when exhaustion replaces panic and the past starts to feel unreal, Herman makes a decision. Not consciously heroic, not noble, simply practical. If this is the world now, then he will live in it fully. If they want him to be Comanche, then he will be Comanche, not temporarily, not reluctantly, but completely. Because half measures are a luxury reserved for people who are safe. The human mind, especially a young one, is remarkably adaptable when given no alternative. And when your old reality is gone, sometimes the only thing left to build is a new one. Quanah tells Herman that his family was killed during the raid, which is not true. But truth is not particularly important in moments like this, belief is, and Herman believes it for years. With nothing to return to, the past loosens its grip, and the present tightens its hold. He is put to work carrying water, tending horses, scraping hides, learning through observation and repetition, absorbing a way of life that does not pause to explain itself. The hierarchy is clear, he is at the bottom, but the rules are consistent, and consistency, even when harsh, can feel strangely comforting. He learns to watch, to listen, to notice things that once would have seemed invisible, the shape of the land, the movement of clouds, the behavior of animals. Survival as a language spoken fluently by everyone around him. And somewhere in all of this, something deeply uncomfortable for modern sensibilities begins to happen. He starts to belong, not because the past is forgotten, but because the present demands participation. This is the frontier's quiet lesson, that identity is not always something you choose. Sometimes it is something that happens to you, slowly, relentlessly, until one day you look back and realize the boy who left the sheep that afternoon is already a stranger. The Texas hills remain indifferent and beautiful, watching another story begin, not with a grand declaration, but with a child walking out into a field, expecting nothing more than an ordinary evening, and receiving instead the first step into a life that will never quite settle into a single shape. The Comanche, horses, violence, and the practical art of taking children. Ah yes, the Comanche, a name that tends to arrive already wrapped in assumptions depending on who is telling the story. They are either noble spirits of the plains, faceless villains on horseback, or a footnote squeezed between westward expansion and manifest destiny, none of which is particularly helpful if you are trying to understand who they actually were. The Comanche were not originally from Texas at all. History rarely stays where maps tell it to. They came down from the Rocky Mountains generations earlier, pushed south by stronger tribes, and pulled outward by hunger, pressure, and opportunity. And for a long time, they barely survived. A people constantly moving, constantly adapting, living one bad winter away from disappearing entirely. Then horses entered the picture, quietly at first, slipping out of Spanish control through trade, theft, and escape. And when the Comanche got hold of them, something rare happened. Not just adoption, but transformation. They did not simply learn to ride, they became riders. In the deepest sense of the word, their lives reorganized around speed, mobility, and an intimacy with horses that bordered on instinct. Within a few generations, they turned into what might be the most effective light cavalry the continent had ever seen, able to move faster, strike harder, and vanish more completely than any force sent after them, soldiers trained in European tactics struggled to comprehend a way of fighting that ignored formations, supply lines, and the polite expectation that battles would stay where they were scheduled. The Comanche could fire arrows at full gallop, lean down the side of a horse to use it as a moving shield, reload and strike again before an enemy had even finished swearing at the first miss. They were not chaotic, they were precise, and precision looks like chaos to people who do not understand it. They called themselves Numunu, the people. Everyone else called them Comanche, roughly translated as those who fight us all the time Ni, which to be fair is not an inaccurate summary of the relationship. By the time Herman Lehmann is born, Comanche raids are already woven into frontier life, not daily, not constant, but frequent enough that families learn to listen differently, to notice dust on the horizon, to sleep lightly, to treat peace as temporary rather than guaranteed. This is where the modern imagination tends to fail, because we like clean categories, good guys and bad guys, innocence and cruelty neatly separated. But the frontier does not cooperate with that kind of thinking. Raids were not simply about violence for violence's sake. They were about resources, horses especially, because horses meant survival, power, and status. They were also about people, captives taken to replace those lost to disease, because European illnesses had done what no army ever managed to do. They had hollowed out entire communities with ruthless efficiency. Smallpox, cholera, measles, invisible enemies arriving ahead of settlers, cutting through populations that had no immunity, leaving gaps where families used to be. And into those gaps, captives were placed, especially children, because children could adapt, could learn language, customs, skills, could become part of the tribe rather than remaining forever separate. This does not make the experience gentle or humane. In any modern sense, it simply makes it logical. And logic is often the most unsettling part of history. When people say the Comanche took children because they were evil, what they usually mean is that the idea makes them uncomfortable, which is understandable. But discomfort is not an explanation. So when Herman is taken, he is not an exception. He is part of a grim system shaped by survival rather than morality, a system that has been running for decades by the time he is pulled away from the only life he knows. To the Comanche raiders, he is not Herman, not a son, not a brother. He is potential, a body that can work, a mind that can be shaped, a future warrior, hunter, or husband if he survives the transition. Survival is the first test, and it is not an easy one because the Comanche do not ease captives gently into their new world. There is no orientation period, no handbook. The old life must be broken quickly, efficiently, before longing turns into rebellion. This is where the brutality enters, not as sadism, but as method, beatings, deprivation, humiliation, all designed to sever ties to the past, to make the old identity feel weak and dangerous. It is important to understand this without romanticizing it, because the suffering is real. Herman is still a child, his body and mind pushed beyond anything they were meant to endure. And yet this process is also what allows him to survive, because in stripping away the old, the space for the new is created. The Comanche world does not care who you were yesterday. It cares who you are becoming today. And if you cannot become what it requires, you do not last long. There is a strange irony here, uncomfortable but unavoidable, that the same culture capable of such harshness is also deeply communal, tightly bound by kinship, ritual, and shared labor. Once a captive proves adaptable, proves willing to learn and endure. The treatment changes, not immediately, not magically, but noticeably. Food improves, clothing becomes warmer, responsibilities shift from menial to instructional, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the captive moves from object to person. This transition is not guaranteed. Many never make it. But for those who do, the sense of belonging can become powerful, especially when compared to the loneliness of being an outsider everywhere else. Herman does not understand this yet, but he is entering a society where skill matters more than origin, where your usefulness to the group determines your value, where identity is earned rather than inherited. It is a harsh meritocracy, but it is consistent, and consistency, again, can feel like kindness when everything else has been taken away. He will learn that the Comanche do not waste much, not time, not resources, not people, if they can be shaped into something functional. Every skill has a purpose, every ritual a reason, even if that reason is lost to time or wrapped in spiritual language. Spirituality itself is woven tightly into daily life, not separated into neat weekly observances. The world is alive, filled with forces that must be respected, appeased, understood. Animals carry meaning, dreams matter, endurance is admired, fear is tolerated only briefly. The Comanche do not talk about destiny the way settlers do. They talk about readiness, about being prepared for what comes, because what comes is often violent, sudden, and final. Children grow up learning that survival is not guaranteed, and that knowledge shapes them early, sharply, without apology. From the outside, this can look terrifying, savage even, but from the inside, it feels coherent, a complete system adapted to a specific environment. The plains are vast and unforgiving, resources move, enemies appear and disappear, flexibility is survival, rigidity is death. Settlers build fences and towns, the Comanche move, and for a long time, movement wins. This does not make one way morally superior. It simply means one is better suited to the conditions at hand. History, of course, will eventually favor numbers, industry, and relentless expansion, but in 1870 that outcome is not yet inevitable, not yet obvious, and certainly not comforting. For Herman, this world will soon become normal, but right now it is still overwhelming, a flood of unfamiliar sounds, language, expectations, and danger. He does not yet know that some captives will refuse to return when given the chance, that some will mourn the loss of their Comanche families more deeply than the ones they left behind. That idea tends to upset people because it complicates the narrative. It suggests that belonging is not as simple as blood or birthplace, and that humans are capable of adapting in ways that feel almost disloyal to their past selves. This is the quiet horror and quiet marvel of the frontier, that it reshapes people not just physically but psychologically, that it asks questions about identity most societies prefer to avoid. Who are you when everything familiar is gone? Who do you become when survival requires transformation? And how much of that transformation can you ever undo? Herman is about to find out, step by step, skill by skill, until the Comanche world no longer feels like captivity, but like home. And that realization, when it comes, will be more unsettling than any act of violence. For now, though, he is simply a child, moving deeper into a society that does not care about his comfort, only his potential, and the Comanche ride on across the grasslands, horses breathing hard beneath them, the plains stretching endlessly ahead. indifferent to who claims them, who bleeds on them, or who learns painfully how to belong to them. The first day of hell. Herman is 11 years old, tied across the back of a horse that does not care about his fear, watching the outline of his home sink behind the hills, like a memory already fading, the chimney smoke dissolving into the sky as if it had never meant anything at all. The land stretches open in front of him, wide and indifferent, and with every hoofbeat, the distance between who he was and who he is becoming grows larger, quieter, more final. There is no dramatic farewell, no last look back filled with meaning, just motion, dust, and the dull understanding that whatever comes next will not ask his permission. This is how hell begins on the frontier, not with fire or screaming, but with momentum, with being carried somewhere you did not choose by people who are not interested in your feelings about it. The first hours are confusion layered on pain, his head throbbing where the pistol struck him, his arms numb from the rope, his mouth dry in a way that makes swallowing hurt. The sun is merciless, pressing down on him as if to remind him that nature does not care about innocence either, and the horse beneath him moves with a rhythm that is almost hypnotic, except that every jolt sends a reminder through his body that he is not supposed to be here. Hunger arrives early, sharp and distracting, followed closely by thirst, which is worse. Thirst has a way of turning thoughts inward, making the world narrow and cruel. The men around him shout, laugh, speak in a language that means nothing to him, and occasionally someone reaches out, not to help, but to check the rope, to remind him that escape is a fantasy best abandoned quickly. Night does not bring relief, only cold, fear, and movement. They travel mostly in the dark, avoiding pursuit, crossing land that seems endless in its sameness, flat stretches where the stars feel close enough to touch and yet offer no comfort at all. Herman drifts in and out of consciousness, half dreaming, half awake, his mind grasping for something familiar and finding nothing it can hold on to. This is where the child begins to disappear, not all at once, but in pieces, stripped away by exhaustion and terror. By the time they stop, when they finally stop, he is no longer sure how much time has passed, only that his body feels smaller somehow, lighter, as if parts of him have been left behind on the trail. What comes next is not random cruelty, though it will feel like that to him. It is deliberate, systematic, designed to break something specific. He is beaten when he resists, beaten when he does not understand, beaten when he hesitates too long to respond to commands he cannot yet comprehend. Food, when it comes, is not familiar, not comforting, and sometimes it is used as punishment rather than sustenance. There is an incident involving a freshly killed calf, an act meant to humiliate as much as to feed, forcing him to confront the reality that the rules of his old life no longer apply. He vomits, he is beaten again, he is made to eat what he cannot keep down. And in that moment, something important happens, not visibly, not dramatically, but deeply. This is the moment where many stories expect defiance, a spark of rebellion, a vow of escape whispered through clenched teeth. What actually happens is quieter and far more unsettling. Herman realizes that resistance, at least the kind he understands, is useless. His strength is gone, his size is irrelevant. His knowledge means nothing here. The frontier has removed his options one by one, and what remains is a single uncomfortable truth. Survival now depends on adaptation. This is not courage, not bravery in the way it is usually sold. It is calculation, the cold arithmetic of an 11-year-old mind pushed into adult territory without warning. Somewhere between one sunrise and the next, as hunger and exhaustion blur together, Herman makes a decision that will shape the rest of his life. If they intend to break him, he will not give them the satisfaction of watching him shatter. If they want him to become Comanche, then he will become Comanche, fully, completely, not as a trick, not as a temporary disguise, but as a way of staying alive. This decision is not spoken, not announced. It settles into him quietly, like a stone dropped into deep water. From that point on, his fear changes shape. It becomes focus, observation, a constant scanning of faces, gestures, reactions, looking for patterns, for rules that can be learned and followed. The human mind is remarkably flexible when it has no choice, especially a young one. When your old reality is destroyed quickly and thoroughly, nostalgia becomes dangerous, longing becomes a liability. Herman's memories of home begin to feel unreal, like stories told to him rather than experiences he lived. He is told that his family was killed during the raid, that there is nothing to return to, and he believes it because belief, in this case, is easier than hope. Hope would require energy he no longer has. Hope would invite disappointment. Belief offers finality, and finality can be comforting in a brutal way. He begins to watch more than he speaks, to listen more than he reacts. He notices how the men move, how they treat one another when violence is expected and when it is not. He learns that punishment is often predictable, tied to specific failures, and that success, however small, can bring relief. Carry water correctly, tend horses without complaint, move when told, stop when signaled. These are not heroic acts, but they are steps toward survival, and survival is the only goal that matters now. There is dark irony in how quickly the body adjusts, how pain becomes background noise, how hunger dulls from sharp agony to a constant ache that can be ignored if necessary. This is not resilience in a romantic sense. It is the nervous system recalibrating under pressure, lowering expectations, redefining normal. Herman does not think of himself as brave. He thinks of himself as tired. And tired people are often very good at doing what is required to make the exhaustion stop. By the end of that first day, if day is even the right word for something that feels more like a single, endless stretch of suffering, Herman is no longer the same boy who walked out to check on sheep. That boy believed in routines, in dinner at home, in the idea that tomorrow would look roughly like today. This new version understands something harsher and far more accurate about the world, that stability is temporary, that power matters, and that survival sometimes requires becoming someone you never planned to be. The Comanche do not celebrate this transformation. They do not acknowledge it at all. For them, it is simply the beginning of a process, one they have seen many times before. For Herman, it is the first step into a life that will demand everything he has and more. The hills fade behind him completely now, replaced by open plains and an unfamiliar future. And the first day of hell closes not with resolution, but with acceptance, quiet, heavy, and necessary. The strange skills of survival. Once the first day ends, not cleanly but by fading into another stretch of exhaustion, something subtle changes in Herman's life. The violence does not stop, the danger does not lessen, but it becomes structured. And structure, even brutal structure, is something a human mind can work with. This is where learning begins. Not announced, not formal, but constant, relentless, woven into every movement of the day. Herman is no longer only being broken down, he is being built into something new. And the materials used are necessity, repetition, and consequences. There are no lessons in the way schools understand lessons, no explanations delivered slowly for comprehension. There is only demonstration and expectation. Watch once, try once, fail once, suffer once, then do it correctly or suffer again. He learns first by carrying water mostly, because water is life on the plains, and those who understand that are kept alive slightly longer. He learns how heavy it is, how precious, how never to spill it, and how to find it where none seems to exist. He watches the older men read the land as if it were speaking quietly to them, a bend in the grass, a line of insects, the way birds behave when water is nearby. And slowly he realizes that what once looked like empty space is actually full of information. The plains are not silent, they are whispering constantly, and only the untrained think they have nothing to say. Tracking comes next, not as a skill separate from movement, but as part of it. Herman learns to see what he once stepped over without thought: a broken twig, a scuffed stone, a faint impression in dust that tells a story about weight, speed, direction. It is unsettling how quickly this knowledge settles into him, how naturally his eyes begin to follow patterns instead of objects. This is not book learning. There is no memorization, only use, and use carves grooves into the mind deeper than words ever could. He begins to understand that animals leave signatures, that nothing moves without consequence, that the land remembers even when people forget. Weather is treated the same way, not as something random, but as something readable. Clouds are not just clouds, they are warnings or promises. The wind is not just wind, it carries messages about heat, cold, storms, danger. Herman learns to feel changes before they arrive, to trust the tightening in his chest or the shift in smell in the air. On the frontier, weather kills just as efficiently as enemies, and respecting it is not optional. The Comanche do not fight the environment. They cooperate with it, bend around it, move with it, and slowly, Herman begins to do the same. Hunting becomes a central lesson, not because it is glamorous, but because it feeds everyone. He learns patience first, because impatience wastes energy, then precision, because mistakes cost lives. Weapons are simple: bows, arrows, knives, but their simplicity hides skill, drawing, aiming, releasing while moving, while riding, while breathing hard. Herman's hands blister, his muscles ache. His body reshapes itself around the demands placed on it. He learns to ride, really ride, not sitting passively on a horse, but becoming part of its movement, understanding its moods, its strengths, its limits. The horse is not a tool, it is a partner, and mistreating it is not cruelty so much as stupidity. Fire. Something Herman once took for granted becomes another revelation. He learns to make it without matches, without flint in some cases, using friction, patience, the right kind of wood, the right kind of tinder. Fire is no longer guaranteed, it is earned, and earning it feels like power. He learns to protect it from wind, to hide it from enemies, to use it sparingly. Every spark matters, every flame has a cost. These are lessons that sink deep, changing how he sees even the smallest comforts. And then there are the rituals, the parts that do not fit neatly into modern explanations. One of them involves wolves. The Comanche admire the wolf, not because it is kind, but because it survives, because it endures, because it moves tirelessly across the plains without apology. Herman participates in a ritual where the blood of a wolf is consumed, believed to transfer its qualities, speed, endurance, cunning. To an outside observer, this might sound absurd, primitive, even laughable, and it is tempting to smile at the idea of drinking blood to gain strength. But in a world where belief shapes behavior and behavior shapes survival, the distinction between symbolic and practical begins to blur. If believing you are strong makes you act strong, then the belief itself becomes a weapon. Herman does not question this, not because he has abandoned critical thought, but because questioning serves no purpose here. What matters is that the ritual binds him closer to the group, marks him as someone willing to commit fully, and in doing so grants him protection and acceptance. Identity on the frontier is not something you declare. It is something you demonstrate repeatedly until others accept it as fact. Over time, the beatings lessen, not disappear, but they lose their randomness. His work improves, his reactions become quicker, his understanding deeper. He is given better food, warmer clothing, eventually a horse of his own. These are not rewards in the emotional sense. They are investments. The tribe is no longer simply tolerating him, it is shaping him. He moves from slave to student, without ceremony, without announcement, one day simply realizing that he is trusted with tasks that matter. There is a dark humor in how quickly the extraordinary becomes normal. Things that would have horrified him weeks earlier now register as routine. Sleeping on the ground, eating unfamiliar food, riding for days without complaint. These are no longer hardships. They are life. The frontier has a way of shrinking expectations until survival feels like success. Herman does not miss chairs or tables or regular meals. He misses nothing in particular because missing things hurts, and he has learned instinctively to avoid pain where possible. What surprises him most, though he would struggle to articulate it later, is that he begins to enjoy parts of this life. Not the violence, not the fear, but the clarity. There is a simplicity to living where every day has a clear purpose, where skill is respected, where your value is visible in what you can do rather than who you are supposed to be. The plains offer a kind of brutal honesty, and for a boy whose old life was already fractured by loss, that honesty feels strangely grounding. This is the uncomfortable truth that frontier history often avoids, that some captives did not want to be rescued, that the life they found, however harsh, offered something their old lives did not. This does not mean the suffering was justified. It means humans are adaptable to a degree that unsettles our neat moral categories. Herman's transformation is not a betrayal of his past. It is a response to his present, and the present demands competence above all else. By the end of this phase, Herman is no longer simply surviving. He is functioning. His movements are efficient, his senses sharp, his reactions quick. He understands the rhythms of camp life, the unspoken rules, the expectations. He knows when to speak and when silence is safer. He knows how to read faces, how to anticipate anger, how to avoid unnecessary attention. These are not skills taught deliberately. They are absorbed, like language, through immersion and necessity. The boy who once checked sheep in the Texas hills has become something else entirely. a figure shaped by wind, hunger, belief, and repetition. He is still young, still learning, but the foundation has been laid. The strange skills of survival have taken root, and they will carry him forward into deeper, darker chapters yet to come. For now, the plains stretch endlessly around him, the fire crackles low, horses breathe softly in the darkness, and Herman sleeps not as a captive waiting for rescue, but as a student of a world that has decided to keep him. When the rules of living become unclear, there comes a moment on the frontier when the invisible lines finally dissolve, when right and wrong stop behaving like opposites and start acting more like distant relatives who no longer speak. And for Herman, that moment arrives quietly, without ceremony, wrapped in the simple fact of death. Carnivist, the man who first dragged him away from his old life, the one who beat him, starved him, humiliated him, and then gradually trained him, protects him, feeds him, dies. Not heroically, not in a grand battle that would make sense of things, but suddenly, violently, as people often do out here. And with that death, something inside Herman shifts in a way that would confuse any courtroom, any sermon, any comfortable moral system designed far away from dust and blood. Herman is 12 years old now, which on the frontier is old enough to understand consequences and young enough to feel them without filters. Carnivist was not kind, not gentle, not a father in the storybook sense, and yet he was the center of Herman's universe for over a year. He controlled when Herman ate, slept, rode, learned, suffered, and slowly when he was allowed to matter. That kind of power rewires a mind, especially a young one. It does not feel like love, at least not the soft version people like to imagine. It feels like gravity, constant, inescapable, shaping everything around it. So when Carnivist is killed, Herman does not feel relief. He does not feel freedom. What he feels is loss, sharp and disorienting, because the structure that kept him alive has vanished. The man who defined the rules, however cruel, is gone, and without him, the world feels suddenly unstable. This is where the frontier reveals one of its ugliest truths, that attachment does not require kindness, only consistency. When someone controls your survival long enough, they become necessary, and necessity is a powerful emotion masquerading as loyalty. The tribe reacts in ways Herman expects and does not expect. There is anger, ritual, preparation for retaliation, but there is also calculation. Death creates imbalance, and imbalance must be corrected, not out of vengeance alone, but to restore order. Herman watches all of this closely, absorbing the unspoken lesson that justice here is not abstract. It is practical. Someone must pay, not because it is morally satisfying, but because allowing a death to go unanswered invites weakness. Weakness invites extinction. The math is brutal, but it is clear. What surprises even Herman is his own response. He feels something harden inside him, something that insists on action. Carnivist may have been his captor, but he was also his teacher, his protector, the reason Herman learned how to survive instead of how to die slowly. In the strange, emotional economy of the plains, that matters. The idea that this man could be killed without consequence feels wrong to Herman in a way he cannot fully explain. Not wrong like a rule broken, wrong like a structure collapsing. And so Herman makes a decision that would horrify his former neighbors and make perfect sense to his current world. he chooses revenge. Not impulsively, not in a fit of rage, but deliberately, with focus sharpened by training and belief. This is not a child throwing a tantrum. This is a young Comanche in training, responding to a death as he has been taught. The target is an adult, a medicine man involved in carnivist's death, someone respected, feared, powerful. The imbalance is significant. Correcting it will cost something. When the moment comes, there is no dramatic buildup, no hesitation filled with tears. Herman moves the way he has been trained to move, quietly, efficiently, without ceremony. The act itself is swift, shocking in its simplicity. A 12-year-old killing an adult should feel impossible, unnatural, and yet on the frontier, it feels almost mundane. Skill outweighs size, preparation outweighs age. The land does not care who you are supposed to be, only what you can do. Afterward, there is no applause, no praise, no emotional release. The tribe acknowledges what has been done, the imbalance addressed, the tension eased. Herman is not celebrated as a hero, but he is no longer just a captive either. He has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, and in doing so, he has proven something vital. He is capable of acting according to the rules of this world, even when those rules feel uncomfortable, even when they clash violently with the values he was once taught. This is where modern language struggles to keep up. Words like victim and perpetrator begin to lose their usefulness. Was Herman a victim taken from his home, brutalized, reshaped against his will? Absolutely. Was he also now a perpetrator, capable of calculated violence in service of a belief system he has adopted? Also, yes. The frontier does not care about the contradiction. It allows both to exist simultaneously, unapologetically. Psychologists have a term for what is happening inside Herman: traumatic bonding, a deep emotional attachment formed through cycles of fear, dependence, and intermittent care. It sounds clinical, almost sterile, and that is part of the problem. The term explains the mechanism but not the experience. From the inside, it does not feel like pathology, it feels like logic. If someone controls whether you live or die, and then gradually teaches you how to live, your brain learns to associate them with survival. Loyalty becomes less about affection and more about orientation. They are the axis around which your world turns. This is not weakness. That is an important point, because history loves to judge from a safe distance. This is adaptation under extreme pressure. The human nervous system is designed to attach to whatever increases its chances of staying alive. On the frontier, emotional purity is a luxury few can afford. Herman's loyalty to carnivist is not sentimental, it is structural. Remove carnivist, and the structure collapses. Revenge, in this context, is not about anger, it is about restoration. There is a grim irony here that is hard to ignore. The same society that took Herman's childhood now relies on him to uphold its values. The same violence that once terrified him is now something he wields with purpose. This does not mean he has become cruel in some cartoonish way. It means he has internalized the logic of his environment so completely that acting against it feels wrong, even when the actions themselves are horrific by other standards. At night, when the camp settles and the plains stretch out under the stars, Herman does not lie awake questioning morality. He lies awake listening, alert, grounded, part of the rhythm of the world around him. The fog between family and captor, between obligation and choice, has become permanent. It does not lift in the morning. It simply becomes the air he breathes. This is the frontier at its most unsettling, not because of the violence alone, but because of how reasonable everything feels once you are inside it. The rules are not written down. They are learned through blood, loss, and survival. And Herman, once a boy from a quiet Texas farm, now lives by them fluently. There is no going back from this moment, even if the opportunity were to appear. Something fundamental has changed. He has acted not as a prisoner, not as a confused child, but as a participant in a system that has claimed him fully. The mist between who he was and who he is now does not clear. It thickens. And somewhere in that fog, the frontier continues to whisper its favorite lesson, that survival does not ask if you are ready. It only asks if you are willing. Quanah Parker and a Comanche youth. By the time Herman drifts into the orbit of Quanah Parker, childhood has already become a rumor, something other people talk about nostalgically, like mild winters or honest politicians. Herman is still young in years, but the frontier has aged him in the only way it knows how, by forcing experience to arrive faster than reflection. Quanah Parker is not yet a legend carved into textbooks, but he is already something close, the son of a Comanche chief and a white woman taken years before, a living contradiction riding comfortably between identities that most people insist cannot coexist. If Herman had been looking for a mirror, he could not have found a better one. Quanah's camp feels different from the beginning. Not softer, not safer, just sharper. This is a group that understands the direction history is moving in, even if they refuse to surrender to it. The buffalo are thinning, the settlers multiplying, the soldiers growing more persistent, and the plains no longer feel infinite in the way they once did. Survival now requires more than tradition. It requires adaptation, layered on top of adaptation, and Quanah embodies that instinctively. He knows the old ways intimately, but he also watches the enemy closely, learning their habits, their weaknesses, their arrogance. This is not nostalgia-driven resistance, it is strategic defiance. For Herman, joining this group feels less like entering a new chapter and more like deepening the same story. The skills he has learned are no longer just about endurance, they are about excellence. Hunting becomes competitive, not cruelly so, but intensely. Who can ride longer, aim better, track faster? Horse races tear across the plains with laughter and bruises, victories measured not in prizes but in reputation. These are not games in the modern sense, they are rehearsals for survival, and everyone knows it. Raids return to his life, now framed differently. This is not the chaos he remembers from the day he was taken. This is organized, deliberate, almost clinical. Targets are chosen carefully, timing matters, speed matters more. Herman rides with men who move like shadows, who understand that the best fight is the one that ends before the enemy knows it has begun. There is a strange professionalism to it, a focus that leaves little room for emotion. Fear is managed, not eliminated. Excitement is controlled, not indulged. The frontier rewards those who can stay calm while everything else burns. Living under Quanah means living inside contradiction. Quanah speaks both worlds fluently, understands the settler's logic even as he resists it. He is proof that identity is not fixed, that bloodlines do not dictate allegiance as cleanly as people would like. For Herman, this is both comforting and unsettling. Comforting because it validates his own fractured sense of self. Unsettling because it offers no simple resolution. There is no moment where everything clicks into place, and he knows exactly who he is. Instead, there is motion, constant adjustment, a balancing act performed daily. Within the group, Herman earns respect, not through speeches or declarations, but through consistency. He rides well, hunts well, endures without complaint. He does not hesitate when danger appears, and he does not boast when it passes. This quiet competence is valued more than bravado. In a world where noise attracts death, restraint becomes a virtue. The older warriors notice. Respect arrives gradually, almost invisibly, but once it is there, it sticks. And yet, despite belonging more than ever, Herman remains an outsider in ways that cannot be erased. His accent slips through when he speaks. His memories surface uninvited, fragments of a different life that do not quite fit here. He is accepted, trusted, relied upon, but he is not forgotten as different. This is not cruelty. It is awareness. The Comanche understand lineage and story deeply. They know who came from where, even when it stops mattering day to day. At the same time, the white world he came from is drifting further away, not geographically, but psychologically. He hears stories of settlers, of soldiers, of towns growing louder and more crowded. These stories do not spark longing, they spark distance. He knows how those people would see him now, if they saw him at all. Not as a lost boy, but as something dangerous, something corrupted. The irony, of course, is that they would never recognize how disciplined, how precise, how thoughtful his life has become. There is a dark humor in this, the kind that only surfaces late at night when the fire burns low. The idea that civilization is defined by walls and uniforms, while the so-called savages operate with rules so strict that breaking them can mean death. The frontier laughs quietly at such distinctions. Out here, survival is the only metric that matters, and by that measure, Herman is thriving. Quanah notices him, not in a dramatic mentor-student way, but with the casual awareness of a leader tracking assets. Herman is useful, adaptable, loyal, without being blind. These are rare qualities, especially combined. He is given more responsibility, more dangerous tasks, chances to prove himself further. Each success tightens his place within the group. Each risk survived reinforces the sense that this is where he belongs, or at least where he functions best. Youth among the Comanche is not sheltered. There is joy, laughter, competition, even tenderness, but it exists alongside constant readiness. The future is never assumed. Herman learns to live fully in the present, because the present is all that can be trusted. Tomorrow might bring a raid, a battle, a forced move, or nothing at all. Planning exists, but expectation does not. As years pass in this rhythm, Herman becomes something that would be difficult to explain to either world. Too Comanche to be white, too white to ever be fully Comanche, and yet undeniably shaped by both. This in-between state is not a weakness here. It is a skill. He understands multiple ways of thinking, multiple sets of instincts. He can anticipate reactions, adapt strategies, move between perspectives without fully committing to any single one. This does not make life easier. It makes it sharper. Herman feels everything more intensely, the tension between worlds always humming beneath the surface. He knows that history is closing in, that the freedom of the plains is narrowing, that the future will demand choices he has been able to postpone. For now, though, he rides, hunts, laughs, fights, and survives, wrapped in the uneasy grace of youth spent on borrowed time. Under Quanah Parker's leadership, Herman does more than endure the frontier. He excels within it. He is no longer the boy tied to a horse, no longer the captive learning to eat what disgusts him. He is a respected member of a community that values skill above origin, action above intention. The plains have shaped him into something efficient, dangerous, and capable. And yet, as the wind moves through the grass and the stars wheel overhead, there is always that quiet awareness that he is living between stories, not fully claimed by any single one. The frontier allows this, even encourages it, but it never lets you forget the cost. Coming home and the hollow space. Inside. The return home is supposed to be the end of the story, the soft landing after years of violence and confusion, the moment where everything painful is resolved by familiar faces and familiar walls. That is how these stories usually work, at least the versions told to make people sleep better. Herman's return does not follow that script. When he finally steps back into Mason County, into a house that still smells faintly like the past he lost, the frontier does not release him. It follows him inside, settles quietly behind his eyes, waits patiently for the night. At first, there is celebration. Family members stare at him as if he is both miracle and ghost, thinner, harder, older in ways that have nothing to do with years. They expect gratitude, relief, tears. Herman provides what he can because he understands performance now, understands that certain emotions are expected in certain settings. But beneath the surface, something is off. The walls feel too close. The silence feels wrong. The predictable rhythm of meals and conversations makes him restless, like a horse tied too tightly after a long ride. At night, the dreams begin. He does not dream in English anymore, not consistently. Comanche words surface without warning, commands, warnings, fragments of songs and rituals that no longer have a place here. His body reacts before his mind does. A door creaks, and he is awake instantly, heart racing, muscles coiled. A sudden movement across the room triggers a hand reaching for a weapon that is no longer there. His family watches this with a mixture of concern and fear, unsure whether the boy they lost has truly come back or whether something else has taken his place. Herman notices their reactions immediately. He has spent years reading people for survival. He sees the way his mother hesitates before touching him, the way conversations stop when he enters the room, the way neighbors look at him too long, searching for something dangerous in his eyes. He understands, with a dull clarity, that he no longer fits cleanly into this world either. Whatever he became out there, it does not translate well into kitchens and front porches. He tries genuinely to adjust. He sits at tables, eats with utensils again, wears clothes that restrict movement instead of facilitating it. He learns slowly to lower his voice, to soften his gaze, to remind himself that not every disagreement is a prelude to violence. But these adjustments feel like costumes rather than transformations. The instincts remain. He still calculates exits when entering a room. He still listens for sounds outside at night. He still feels most alive when moving, when doing something physical, something that demands total presence. The frontier taught him clarity. Home offers comfort, but comfort feels vague, unfocused, almost dangerous. Out there, every action had a reason. Every risk was obvious. Here, threats are social, invisible, buried under politeness. This confuses him more than any raid ever did. He is expected to explain himself, to narrate his experience in a way that makes sense to people who have never been truly hungry, truly hunted. He cannot find the words, and even if he could, he suspects they would not land the way he intends. There is also guilt, quiet and persistent. Guilt for surviving when others did not. Guilt for feeling restless instead of grateful. Guilt for missing people he is not supposed to miss. The idea that he could feel affection, loyalty, even nostalgia for his Comanche life feels like a betrayal of the family now watching him try to reintegrate. He keeps this to himself. Some truths are easier to carry alone. The town tries to place him into categories it understands. Lost child returned, victim rescued, curiosity, warning. None of these quite fit. Herman senses that he has become a story people tell rather than a person they know. Stories are easier. Stories have clear arcs and satisfying endings. People do not have to sit with the uncomfortable parts of stories, the contradictions, the unresolved tension. Herman lives inside those parts now. There are moments of peace, small ones. A familiar hill at sunset, the sound of wind through trees instead of grass, laughter that feels genuine, not forced. But even these moments carry an undertone of absence. Something is missing, not a place exactly, but a way of being. On the plains, his identity was defined by what he could do. Here, it is defined by who he is supposed to be. That gap feels enormous. The hardest part is realizing that return is not reversal. You do not simply rewind years of adaptation and emerge unchanged. The skills that kept him alive have not expired. They still operate quietly, constantly. His family sees a boy trying to come home. Herman feels like a man trying to become smaller again, trying to fit into a shape he has outgrown. Walking between these worlds feels exactly like wearing shoes that do not match. One pinches, the other slips. Neither allows you to walk naturally, and yet stopping is not an option. The frontier taught him that movement is survival. So he moves forward, awkwardly, painfully, learning a new kind of endurance. Not the endurance of hunger or cold, but the endurance of being misunderstood, of belonging nowhere completely. Late at night, when the house is quiet and the past feels closer than the present, Herman stares into the darkness and understands something that few people ever articulate. Survival changes you in ways rescue cannot undo. Home is a place, yes, but it is also a version of yourself, and that version no longer exists in the way everyone hopes it does. He will keep walking. He always has. But the space inside him, the one shaped by wind, blood, loyalty, and loss, remains. Not empty, not broken, just different. And that difference will follow him for the rest of his life, as quietly and persistently as the plains once did. Survival lessons from other people, or how luck often wears a terrible disguise. By the time Herman is trying to relearn how to sit still in a chair without scanning the room for threats, the frontier is still busy producing other stories, equally brutal, equally strange, and just as allergic to neat moral lessons. This is where the camera pulls back, just a little, because Herman was never alone out there. Not really. He was one data point in a massive, unforgiving experiment called the American frontier, an experiment that did not care about courage, virtue, or good intentions, and which routinely rewarded the wrong behaviors while punishing the right ones, sometimes on the same afternoon. Take Kit Carson, for example, a name that sounds like it belongs on a commemorative plate or a middle school gymnasium. By the time newspapers back east were calling him a legend, Carson had already spent years doing things that would make modern survival shows cancel production and issue apologies. There is a moment burned into frontier lore where Carson lies flat against frozen ground while enemy soldiers pass within feet of him, close enough that he can hear one man's heartbeat through the earth. This is not metaphorical. This is a man using the planet itself as a stethoscope. And here is the first lesson the frontier teaches, quietly but firmly. Panic is loud. Stillness survives. Carson does not move, does not breathe too deeply, does not do anything heroic. He simply refuses to die at that particular moment. Survival in these stories is rarely about bold action. It is about withholding action when every instinct is screaming at you to run, to fight, to do something dramatic enough to justify the fear. The frontier does not reward drama. It rewards patience so extreme it borders on the absurd. Then there are the moments where survival becomes less about skill and more about the slow, humiliating process of not giving up when dignity has already left the building. Soldiers boiling leather into soup, men squeezing muddy water from wet sand like it owes them money, entire groups agreeing, quietly, not to ask certain questions about where the meat came from. These are not scenes of triumph. These are scenes of endurance, the kind that strips away any romantic ideas you might still be clinging to. And yet somehow, some of them live. Not because they are better, not because they deserve it. They live because they miscalculate slightly less than everyone else, or because they happen to collapse 5 yards closer to shade, or because relief arrives just late enough to be dramatic but not late enough to be fatal. Survival, it turns out, has a deeply uncomfortable relationship with fairness. Then there is the Donner Party, which feels less like history and more like a warning label humanity ignored. Ordinary families, not fools, not villains, just people who trusted the wrong book, took the wrong shortcut, and found themselves negotiating moral boundaries they did not know they possessed. The rules did not disappear. They narrowed. Carefully labeled bodies, agreements about what would not be eaten, lines drawn in the snow that somehow mattered even as everything else collapsed. And here is another lesson, whispered rather than announced. People cling to rules most fiercely when the world stops making sense. Even at the edge of starvation, even when surrounded by death, humans invent structure. Sometimes that structure saves them. Sometimes it simply helps them look at themselves in the mirror a little longer. Then there is Louis Kieseberg, who survives in a way that makes everyone deeply uncomfortable. Found alone, surrounded by remains, with evidence suggesting he may have crossed lines others refuse to approach. His survival poses a question the frontier asks repeatedly and never answers. Is staying alive always the same thing as winning? The silence around that question is intentional. The frontier is not interested in resolving your ethical discomfort. Roman Nose offers a different kind of lesson, one that has less to do with hunger and more to do with belief. For years, he is considered invulnerable, protected by ritual, by certainty, by the unshakable conviction that the bullets will not find him. And for years, they do not. Warriors fall around him. He rides on, his reputation grows until belief becomes armor, not just for him, but for everyone watching. Then one small thing changes. A rule is broken. a ritual compromised, and suddenly the belief shifts. Roman nose enters battle not as a man who cannot be killed, but as a man who knows he will die. He charges anyway. He is shot. And the frontier adds another note to its long, contradictory lecture. What you believe shapes how you move. How you move shapes what happens to you. That does not mean belief is magic. It means hesitation is expensive. The Buffalo Soldiers tell yet another version of this story. 6 men holding off over 100 attackers from a muddy depression in the ground, wounded, freezing, rationing ammunition like it is gold. One of them lies dying in the open, and instead of leaving him, they drag him closer so he does not die alone. This does not improve their tactical position. It does not increase their odds. It simply preserves something human in a situation that has none of the usual incentives for kindness. They survive, most of them, not because the universe notices their courage, but because discipline, cooperation, and stubbornness align just long enough to matter. The frontier does not reward heroism. It tolerates it occasionally. What ties all these stories together, including Herman's, is not bravery in the cinematic sense. It is adaptability, the ability to let go of who you thought you were supposed to be, the ability to accept that yesterday's rules may kill you today. Herman learns this among the Comanche. Carson learns it crawling through enemy territory. The Donner Party learns it too late. Roman nose learns it in the most final way possible. And running underneath all of it is a darker, almost comedic truth. Sometimes survival comes down to being just reckless enough, not smart enough to freeze completely, not cautious enough to avoid every risk, just foolish enough to try one more thing, one more night, one more mile, one more decision that could just as easily end you. The frontier has no interest in teaching lessons cleanly. It does not pause to explain itself. It does not care if you understand what went wrong. It simply moves on, leaving behind stories that make later generations uncomfortable because they refuse to align with the narratives we prefer. Hard work does not guarantee survival. Good intentions do not protect you. Intelligence helps until it doesn't. What survives, again and again, is a strange combination of luck, stubbornness, and the willingness to become someone else when the situation demands it. Herman becomes Comanche. Carson becomes part of the landscape. The soldiers become a unit so tight they function almost as one organism. Roman nose becomes the embodiment of belief, then its casualty. If this all sounds unfair, that is because it is. The frontier does not care whether you are worthy. It only cares whether you are still breathing. Everything else is commentary added later by people who did not have to drink muddy water through cloth or decide which rules could be broken without breaking themselves. Late at night, when these stories surface again, stripped of their patriotic gloss and campfire romance, they carry a quieter message. Survival is not a moral achievement. It is a condition. It is temporary. And it is often inherited by people who are not entirely sure how they managed it. Herman understands this instinctively. He does not see himself as special. He sees himself as lucky, stubborn, and changed. The others, in their own ways, might say the same if they are honest. The frontier did not select them because they were best. It selected them because they were still there when it moved on. And that may be the most unsettling lesson of all. The ending between between two worlds. By the time Herman Lehmann steps into a rodeo arena, the frontier is already dying its slow, bureaucratic death, fences replacing horizons, rules replacing instincts, paperwork replacing legends. The crowd sees an old man on a horse, lean, weathered, quiet in a way that makes noise feel unnecessary. They have come for history, for spectacle, for a safe brush, with danger that ends before supper. Herman understands this immediately. He has always understood rooms, crowds, expectations. He gives them what they want and keeps the rest for himself. When the calf is released, there is a moment of confusion, then silence. Herman moves without thinking, because thinking would only slow him down. His body remembers things his mind no longer needs to explain. The horse accelerates, the angle is perfect, the arrow flies. It is over almost before it begins. The crowd erupts because of course they do. They clap for precision, for speed, for something that feels ancient and forbidden, but safely contained. Inside an arena with exits and rules and a clear ending. Herman smiles, just slightly, not pride, not nostalgia, more like recognition. He knows what they saw. He also knows what they didn't. They saw skill. They did not see hunger. They saw control. They did not see fear. They saw a performance. They did not see the years it took to make those movements feel inevitable instead of desperate. That gap does not bother him anymore. It used to. Now it just exists. After the noise fades, life returns to its smaller scale. Herman goes home. He sits by a fire. He listens to water moving over stone. Texas sounds like Texas has always sounded, whether you are a farmer, a warrior, or something uncomfortably in between. The stars do their usual work, ancient and indifferent. This too is familiar. His wife sits beside him. She's learned the rhythms of his silences, the way some nights require words and others absolutely do not. She does not ask him what he is thinking. She understands that some thoughts are not designed to be shared, only carried. He squeezes her hand, grounding himself in something real, something present, something that chose him, even when he was not easy to choose. Herman thinks sometimes about the boy he was, the farm, the sheep, the hills. He thinks about the boy who disappeared over a ridge one afternoon and never fully came back. He does not romanticize it. He does not resent it. It simply is. Life did not ask his permission before reshaping him. It rarely does. He also thinks about the Comanche, about Quanah Parker, about nights on the plains where survival felt brutal but honest. There is no bitterness in these memories, only weight. He knows now that belonging is not a single destination. It is a series of temporary alignments, moments where who you are and where you are happen to match, briefly, before drifting apart again. That realization would make some people sad. It does not make Herman sad. It makes him practical. Survival taught him that permanence is a luxury and nostalgia is optional. What matters is continuity, breathing, adapting, staying awake to the world as it changes around you, even when that change feels like loss. There is a mild irony here, one Herman would appreciate. He survives one of the harshest environments in American history, only to spend decades learning how to live quietly, how to sit still, how to exist without scanning the horizon, how to be ordinary. It turns out that normal life requires a different kind of courage, one without applause or clear rules. The frontier taught him how to endure pain. Home taught him how to endure peace. Both were difficult. Both required compromise. Neither offered guarantees. As the fire burns lower, Herman feels the familiar tiredness settle into his bones. Not the exhaustion of hunger or fear, but the deeper fatigue of a long life fully inhabited. He has carried two worlds inside him for decades now. They no longer fight for space. They coexist, sometimes uneasily, sometimes almost gracefully. He knows how the story sounds when told out loud. Farm boy captured by Comanche, becomes warrior, returns home, demonstrates skills at a rodeo, lives quietly ever after. It fits nicely into paragraphs and documentaries. What does not fit is the in-between, the way identity stretches and warps under pressure, the way survival leaves marks that never fade completely. Herman does not try to explain that anymore. He has learned that some truths are experiential, not transferable. You can tell people what happened. You cannot make them feel what it cost. The night deepens. The creek keeps talking to itself. Somewhere, an owl calls. These sounds have existed longer than any border, any tribe, any nation. Herman listens and feels, for once, not torn, not divided, just present. That is enough. If there is a lesson here, it is not heroic and it is not comforting. Survival is not about winning. It is about continuing. It is about adapting without losing everything, about accepting that some parts of you will never fit neatly again, and choosing to live anyway. Herman Lehmann survives not because he conquers the frontier, but because he learns when to stop fighting it. He learns how to live between worlds without demanding that one erase the other. That balance is fragile. It is imperfect. It is real. The fire finally dies down. Herman stands slowly, joints complaining, body reminding him that time, unlike enemies, always gets its way. He looks once more at the stars, then turns toward the light, waiting inside the house. Not a dramatic light, not a symbolic one, just a lamp, left on, steady and warm. He steps inside, the door closes. Outside, the night continues, vast and indifferent, just as it always has. And somewhere between memory and habit, between plains and pasture, Herman rests, carrying his two worlds quietly, all the way to the end.